Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm working in my art journal, and before I started, I had a plan in my head, and let me tell you, I didn't really follow that plan in any way, shape, or form. But you know what? That's pretty much par for the course with me. Well, what inspired this plan that was in my head? It all came together while I was looking through the different things that were shared in last week's Let's Play Link Party. And so I decided to take this plan and take it into my art journal. Now, even though it didn't go as I thought it would go, or basically what made sense in my head didn't seem to make sense on paper, that's okay, because I was having a good old time getting painty and messy. Now, I'm going to share with you not only what I did, but I'm also going to share with you photos of what inspired my play from other artists. And I've got over on the blog direct links to them so that you can also go and visit all of their blogs and check out all of what they're doing. Well, enough of my talking, come check it out. So here's the art from Maria B. Brave and from Jill Holmes that got me started with the first step in my art journal. I found this paper napkin that had all these wonderful dots on it that remind me of Maria B. Brave's. And by the way, if you've ever worked with napkins, they come in multiple plies and you just kind of pull them apart. I'm not sure if this one was a 2 or 3 ply. I say that one's thin enough for me to work with. I thought I was going to work with all those big color dots. But no, I actually like the one that's the bleed through page. Now, why did I go to a paper napkin? Well, that was thanks to Jill Holmes because she had used one in her piece of art. So now I've got my place to start, which already hasn't gone as I expected. And that's going to be a recurring theme here with this, is it's not going to go as I expect. I'm using some PPA from US Art Quest. Basically what I want is a runny glue. I am going to spread it all around, and then I'm just going to put the napkin on top of it. Now, I could be super precise and careful. That way the napkin does not rip, tear in any way, shape, or form, but that's not me. I'm just going to put it down as best I can, and then to go over the top of it, I'm just going to put some more PPA on there. And, you know, any of the runny glues works for this when I'm putting down paper towels or paper napkins, that kind of thing. Just want to use enough glue on there so that you can liberally coat it so you can seal that napkin within it. The next step was inspired by this page from Mary Nasser, and I want to take those circles and put it with Seth Apter's Urban Insider stencil. I saw Mary use it on her page, loved all the colors and the happy from that, so I thought I'd add that into mine. I'm using a cosmetic sponge and some heavy-bodied paint, and I'm just placing it around some of the circles until I fill in as many as makes me happy. So what is this Let's Play Link Party? Well, what that is every Tuesday at 6 a.m., but of course you don't have to be there at 6 a.m. You can show up anytime. And that's when it opens up, though, for that week. And people share what they've been creating. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything that you've created recently. And they're sharing it so we can all see it. And this is not just for people that have a blog or that upload their photos somewhere. You can actually even upload that if you don't have a blog, if you don't have anywhere else that you share it. You can absolutely share what you're creating. I really strongly believe that whatever we each create inspires others. Notice how everything that I've seen in the Link Party from last week inspired me for my play today. Inspiration is all over the place, and everybody has their bit to contribute. So I really encourage you, if you've never shared what you've made before, take the leap, give it a try, share and inspire others with what you're creating. You can find all about the Link Party over on my blog at acolorfuljourney.com, and down below or somewhere around on the video, a link should be popping up for you. If it's not, it'll be down in the description, and you can get right over there and check out what this is all about. Well, notice that I've turned my art journal page because, well, I'm working on a very wet surface. I put a lot of PPA on there, that white glue or that runny glue. And what happened is it's not totally dry. So I'm kind of working around that. Now, I could have taken the time to dry it, but I'm just not that patient. So I'm just going to work around the wet glue. Attic Artist with this piece of art inspired my next layer. I went and found a rubber stamp that I had of a figure, and I really like the figure, but because it's got a lot of solid space to stamp, whenever I stamp it, because I don't take that much time and I don't re-ink my ink pad enough and all that kind of stuff, the background never stamps the way I want it to. So what I'm going to do is just cut that out. I am going to very loosely cut around her, and I have a plan for how I want to use her. Yes, indeed, I have an idea in my head exactly what I'm going to do, and yeah, it's not going to go that way in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, it's really not going to go the way I expected. But you know what? That's kind of the fun of playing. You just never know what's going to happen, and I'm just going to follow where the muse takes me on this. So once I've got her all cut out, I want to give her a little bit of color because that's just, well, that's like white space on there. So I'm going to grab some yellow acrylic ink and I'm going to color in those beautiful Art Deco wings on her. Now remember, I said I have a plan for her. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color her dress. I want this very sort of, Greek goddess kind of feeling to it. Well, that's a blue gelato that I'm using on there. And the reason why I chose a gelato is because it's going to react to water. Of course, I have to go off and get the little cup of water. But once I have that back here, what you'll see is by just putting some water on it with a clean brush, I'm going to spread and smear that around and get some blue to it. Of course, it's not quite as much blue as what I wanted. So I'm just going to bring the gelato back in and add some more lines to it. Well, remember how I said I had a plan for her? I kind of envisioned her as sort of, talking to the birds or some kind of goddess with the birds and, somehow the birds working with her. And I don't know how to explain what was in my head, but it so did not come to life in any way, shape, or form here. So I was just kind of playing around with how to place stuff, and I'm kind of placing her on her head, sort of like a big totem pole here. And, it's kind of fun to play around this way, but I'm just not feeling it. It's just not happening for me. I was so sure those were the birds I was going to use. I was so sure of how this was going to go. But this is how my muse kind of plays around with me some days when I think I really know what's going on. She pretty much shows me who's boss and the fact that she's in charge. So while I'm waiting for the muse to impart her wisdom upon me of how I'm going to use those birds and that Art Deco woman, I decided to just paint around the background. And that's all like white space to me, and that really isn't my comfort zone. So I'm just going to add a whole bunch of color here, just painting right around all the circles, covering up some of the circles that were on the napkin that didn't get the stenciling around them. And then we'll see what the muse tells me when I get this all finished. Well, the muse said, take a look at this piece of art from Inky Dinky Doodle. Inspired by her chevrons on there, I'm going to add some chevrons in various places along my page. Now, my plan was to just put one here, one there kind of thing, but then all of a sudden, I kind of couldn't stop playing with the stencil from Mary Nasser. So what I decided to do was just add a whole lot more of them. More proof that even when I think I know where I'm going, I'm not necessarily going exactly there. Now, if I want the chevron to cover a larger area, all I am doing is lining up the last arrow, and that way I move it and stencil it, line up. That way I can fill in all sorts of sizes of areas. I'm not just limited to what the size of the stencil is. I also like it when you're stenciling if you leave some of it hanging off the edge. That way you get little surprises and peeks with it. Now, of course, I'm sitting here, I'm having such fun with it. I don't want to stop yet, so I'm going to add some more up at the top. Well, I always like to try and work the rainbow into everything that I'm doing. So I am bringing in a green gelato to trace around these circles, kind of cover up, fill in any bit of white space there. I mean, I'll leave a little bit peeking for contrast, but for the most part, yeah, I want to put some color on top of white space. And then I'm going to take a look at my next piece of inspiration, which comes from Atop Serenity Hill. She had a bird in there, and yep, that's the bird that has had me thinking about birds this whole time. Now, these are the birds I thought I was going to use, but instead, I'm going to use the legless birds. I was so sure I was going to use the birds with legs. I kind of had this vision in my head that I, of course, cannot articulate in any way, shape, or form, but it was clearly in my head. And instead, what I've done is taken those birds and I've actually painted them yellow because the way they were with the pinks and purples, it was gorgeous, beautiful jelly printed paper, but it just didn't pop on this. So I had to sacrifice that just a little bit to turn them yellow to make them stand out. And of course, it turns out that makes them match her wings, so she is sort of the bird whisperer here kind of thing. Again, these things all make sense in my head when I'm thinking them, but when I say them out loud, they don't really make as much sense. For the last piece of inspiration here, it comes from Sparkle Day Studio. I love the way she had words at the bottom, so I turned to a random book page and I started cutting out phrases, things that were jumping out at me to see if I can't kind of put some story to this. Now, I'm not going to promise that the story makes any kind of sense, but then again, it doesn't really have to. This is an art journal page. As long as I'm having fun doing it, as long as it makes some kind of crazy sense in my head, I am all good with it. Well, I hope you've been enjoying today's play inside my art journal. And if you're still here, you probably have been enjoying it. So I'd love it if you gave this a thumbs up. And of course, I would love it if you shared this video with people you thought would enjoy it, as well as about the Let's Play Link Party, because I get inspired and you get inspired, and the cycle just keeps going. We all just keep inspiring each other. Well, by the way, what is this crazy story going to say right here on this? It's going to say, sometime in the middle of the night, she said softly, "Oh, I want to know all about them." And, again, it all makes sense in my head, but it doesn't have to make sense in the art journal. And one last thing is needed here for me to call this a finished complete page, and that is eradicating some white space. And here comes that gelato back in to just go right over it, and that way I've got more color there. Well, hey, thanks again for joining me for today's play. And of course, if you would like to see more of my videos, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss when I have a new video out on YouTube. And of course, thank you for being a part of this colorful journey.